that was hunting in the Medicine Bow National Forest. And he lined up on some animals, fired around. He said, Dave, it was like slow motion. The bullet came out of the gun, stopped in midair, hit something, and fell to the ground. And he goes, I couldn't know what to think of that. He says he went over, picked up the round, put it in his pocket. And then this alien entity walked over to him and throws him this package and tells him in mind speak to take the package. And he goes, I don't know why I did, but I did. And he said, the next thing I know, I'm on this craft getting flown away with the deer that I was lined up to shoot. And he said, on the craft, they took me somewhere. He goes, I don't know where. And they had me walk behind this metallic thing. And after that, this entity tells him, we don't need you, we're sending you back. And I said, well, what did that mean if they needed you? You weren't coming back? And he kind of giggled and he goes, I guess.
Timothy Alberino. Episode's called Missing 411, UFOs, and Alien Abduction with David Paulides. David Paulides, the guy on the left there, he runs like a missing person organization that goes and tries to find or at least investigates cases of people going missing in national parks. And him and his, I think he says it's his son, have made some movies. And then the third one has to do with UFO and, paranormal phenomenon. But this is a very significant interview because it is dealing with abductions, which is pretty much the ultimate heebie-jeebie category of ufology. It's like, that's really what they're talking about. They talk about a bunch of cases, but they're really talking about modern abduction phenomenon. They don't have the categories, but they start off, they talk about this guy's backstory. He was a cop, a detective, and then when he was visiting national park, he saw some national park guys checking him out, and then later at his hotel after the bar, they came and talked to him and said, hey, there's a problem. And so then he started looking into it. Turns out there is a problem. A lot of people go missing in national parks, and it seems like the FBI doesn't care, and it seems like there's a lot of cases, and there's a lot of stuff in common with a whole bunch of them, which is still a lot of cases because there's so many to start with. So what he becomes mostly interested in is the cases where the dogs come in and find no scent, no trail, which is a big deal to him with his background. And then secondly, I think the weather event happening at the same time. And then third, cases where those things happen and then the people show up. So they were missing, but now they're found. But when they show up, he says all of those people, there's very few of them have any idea what the fuck happened to them while they were gone. They don't remember getting lost, being lost, or being found. They just remember starting their trip or whatever, and then being found. I mean, they're kind of casual about it. They got some good jokes in there. He tells a story about a guy who, gets taken up into a UFO, and they scan him and they say, no, we're not going to keep you, and they send him back. So he asks the guy, well, why do you think they sent you back? And he said, well, because I got my tubes tied. I'm snipped up, I'm chopped up. And the guy also went to the hospital afterwards, and he had, I guess, tuberculosis scarring or something. And the doctors checked him out and said, "Oh, your scarring's all gone." So I guess the aliens fixed his scarring but didn't fix his snit. And they didn't want to take him because he couldn't, do the thing. So that's funny. That was funny to me that he told the story that way. Like, oh, he could have babies, but they fixed his tuberculosis while he was up in the UFO. So that was funny to me. And then Alberino, jokes about how the guy alien shows up and beams over some pills and you swallow them. Like, I wouldn't swallow no pills from no alien. So it's funny. Timothy Alberino is one of my favorite. He kind of investigates a little bit of the woo, but he's nuts and bolts because he goes to these far off places. He's always traveling to somewhere fantastic and cool and meeting with the natives. I think I always submit him to be like the guy because he is in the woo. I know he's not exactly, and it's important that he's not. He's an exact copy, but I always submit him as like the guy that the Greer people should replace Greer with, just as their front man. Like, he doesn't have to agree with Greer on everything, but Greer just has to stop talking. He has to shut the fuck up, not be the spokesperson anymore for the Greer organization, for CE5, for any of that stuff. He can still be at the places and everything, but he just has to not be on podcasts or do interviews or anything. He just has to knock it off. He goes and takes a back seat, collects a paycheck, and summons UFOs and etc. Let this guy Timothy Alberino be the Greer cult spokesman. And they don't have to call it the Greer cult. Call it what they want. But if they did that, if the Greer people did that, if Greer could bring it on himself to replace himself, it would be so profit in so many ways, in so many levels. It would be win, 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 win. But beyond that part, I really enjoy Timothy Alberino. He doesn't put a lot of stuff out there. It's like a once a month or something kind of guy. And this was fun. This is significant. It's modern UFO alien abduction cases. They talk a little about, they think that, because he's talked to these people who've gone up and come back, that in some cases they were having their body was being worked on there and having their souls, held over here in a box and then put back in that body or into a new body. And they don't say that it could have been a different body, but they didn't say that it couldn't have been. They did say something about clones. So that was fun. Alberino mentions the face peelers down in Peru, which is one of the main reasons I love the guy. When the face peeler stuff was happening, most of the ufology community was kind of ignoring it. And there was some tabloid stuff that was kind of covering it. Alberino had been to that area or very close to it and had contacts. And so he went there. And so then we got someone finally to go do some on the scene coverage of the face peeler stuff, which was really interesting. And it turns out, he thinks that there's bad guys down there, military, conspiracy, black project, private corporation, that are kind of operating in that area. So they're getting all their stuff whenever they need DNA samples, or if they need biologic material for some reason, or if they need a person who's got psychic powers, they just go off into the villages and find the right person and take them. They talk about that for a little bit. It's mostly him kind of telling this guy about it, hey, what do you think about this? Get into Bigelow and consciousness. They talk about Bigelow a little bit. towards the end, they start talking about something I think is pretty significant. And it seems like they just kind of stumble onto it. Is why do the aliens put the stuff back? So when they do cattle mutilation or when they do human abduction, why do they put them back? Like, we don't know why. The cattle, and usually you see cattle mutilations. I've never heard someone talking about cattle mutilations really discuss this part of it before, and so that makes me interested in going and re-watching some parts of some cattle mutilation coverage, because he says, usually you see they talk about there's one half of the cow, that has been mutilated, that has been chopped up, samples have been taken from it, meat, bone, tissue, organs, whatever, and that there's no blood in there, and that the other side of the animal has basically been untouched. But in here they say, well, yeah, but that side, the untouched side, is where it's been dropped. But that's the side it landed on, and it's busted up from that. So that was an interesting part of the discussion that they're talking about as they get into, well, why did they get back? And they just mentioned that while they were talking about, well, why put them back? Why put the cattle back? Why not just dump them in space or put them in the space incinerator or whatever? Why did they go back? Which is really kind of significant. It's interesting. I'd always thought about that as it just, whatever they're doing happens that quickly, just so fast that there's no, I guess, need or thought about the disposal. And Timothy Alberino at some point says, well, maybe they just don't care. And that's kind of the same point, in that they just don't care. That's where they wasted it at. That's where they disposed at. It's just waste. It's just part of the deed. And the same thing with the people. They talk about it for a long time before this part, because the dead people that he was finding are in water almost 100% of the time, and they have a whole lot of GHB in their system. And so those people are part of the same cluster. Why are they being put back? Why are they being dumped everywhere? Why aren't they just gone and missing forever? Even the people who they didn't take, the snipped cut elk hunter guy, like, he didn't get taken. Why did he get put back? And so I thought that is significant. And so this was a good watch. I think it's an hour and a half altogether. It's fun. They're smoking cigars. Alberino tells jokes.